What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. And first off, I got a kind of crazy story for you that I just learned about today. It's actually about 10 days old, but I haven't heard any of the news readers or anything cover it. And then also, I'm going to give you some of my own personal experience incarcerated and stuff that I know about relating to this subject. So, first, the story. There's a guy, Casey White, who was incarcerated at an Alabama County jail. He was already sentenced to 75 years for a home invasion, carjacking, police chase, and stuff like that. But he was also facing two capital murder charges now in the stabbing death of some guy. So he's 38 years old. He's there. Now there's a lady that works there named Vicky White. They're not related. And so Vicky White had worked for the sheriff's department for years, and she had turned in her resignation papers earlier, and this day was actually the last day that she was going to be working. So she says that that Casey, right, the dude incarcerated, has a mental health evaluation. She's going to take him to that, and then while he's at that, she also is going to see a doctor because she's not feeling too well. California, that kind of stuff wouldn't happen, but apparently in Alabama it can. So she by herself, they got video of her. She put him inside a cop car, right, handcuffed and shackled like normal. But there's no mental health evaluation. There's no doctor's appointment, right? They go drive the cop car to a parking lot. In that parking lot is an SUV that she had purchased under an alias and parked there the night before. She leaves behind her keys, her radio, her handcuffs, and they jump into the car. They ride off into the sunset. And then just within the last couple of days, they found that SUV in Tennessee, right? And so like 2 hours away, though, not a long drive. And apparently that SUV had been abandoned in the woods. And so it got picked up and taken to a tow yard. And then the cops found out about it. The SUV doesn't have any evidence of where they're going. It's been cleaned out. And so they're back on the run. Nobody knows where they are. They may have an AR-15, a shotgun, and some pistols with them. I don't know if that's because it's weapons that she already had registered to her, or there were weapons that were in a cop car. I can't imagine there was that many guns in a cop car, but who knows? And they're saying that this has been planned out for a while, that Vicky White had a large amount of cash on her. She had multiple aliases already set up, probably has other aliases they're not aware of. And yeah, they're gone. And it's suspected that they have a romantic relationship. So that's kind of an interesting story, and we'll see how it unfolds, right? But it got me thinking about COs and inmates hooking up, right? And so I remember back in juvenile hall, we had a counselor named Miss Letty at Hillcrest, and she's not a counselor anymore. She's moved on with her life. Like, she's not gonna get in trouble for this. But so I was a kid there, and everybody at Hillcrest knew her, back then. It was late 80s. And so she was kind of flirty. I thought she was cute, right? I got to make out with her when I was like 14 years old. Maybe she didn't like how I made out because I never got to hit. But I found out that a couple of my homeboys did. They were older, right? They were like 17. So maybe that was a factor. I remember when she took us out to court, she stopped and got us some McDonald's, and I thought that was pretty cool. When I was in prison, I feel like I had action at pulling a CO, but honestly, I was nervous, right? Because for one, I was in the general population, and if I was wrong and she wound up, snatching me up for it, and I go back to the whole because being over familiar with a CO, I'm going to get in trouble, right? Because that's some nonsense. And a lot of women that work in correctional centers that have men, I think, well, I don't want to say a lot, but at least some, they sort of thrive off of the power dynamic, right? I remember when I was in Pelican Bay, there was a CO that came up there, and she had used to work in Salinas Valley, and she was up to some stuff with some people. Her car wound up getting shot up in the city of Salinas, and so they transferred her up in the Bay. I didn't know that. And so I'm up in Pelican Bay. I get a visit. They come and they strip you out at the gate out of your pod. And a lot of times, if it's a female CO, they only want you to strip out to your boxers, right? They ain't trying to see all that. And so she comes and I strip out to my boxers and she's like, let me see. And she goes, or if you're feeling shy, you could wait and I'll call for a male CO to come up here, but you know, your visiting time's already started. And I was like, okay. And some people would think of that like, oh man, that was cool. But it was actually really uncomfortable because of that power dynamic, right? It's weird. It's not like being on the streets and a female's getting at you, right? And you're like, hey, what's happening? It's different. Um, and so I mean, I did it. I wanted my visit, right? I wasn't tripping. But so there's that element. And if you're wrong and you push, then you're in trouble, right? But I have known, besides those guys in juvenile hall that got to hit with a counselor, I've known people that have pulled COs, right? From the Bay Area, a handful of folks from the Bay Area, actually. And sometimes they pull them just like for fun, right? You know, they're lifers or they're doing a bunch of time and it's just a fling that happens behind the wall. Sometimes it's to get a little bit of extra contraband or whatever. And then sometimes on a few occasions, actually love is involved, like a legit relationship develops that then, you know, she retires or whatever, and they go move on to the streets and live their life. You know, at the end of the day, whether you're working at jail or you're living in jail, people are people, right? And so you never know where you're gonna find love. You know what I mean? Crazier things have happened. And so I don't, you know, I don't judge folks one way or the other, right? You know, part of it is a hustle, but then again, I've known some people that have honest, sincere relationships out of that stuff. It just is what it is. I know lifers who have gotten into a relationship with COs and those COs retire and then wind up coming back as visitors to them, right? Like they're very open about it. And so yeah, it's interesting. You know, it's a dynamic. It's in women's prisons. I haven't heard about a guy who works at a women's prison breaking a woman out of jail, right? I haven't heard of a guy at a woman's prison building an honest, righteous, if you will, relationship with somebody that's incarcerated. Now, women in prison get pregnant, and there's only one way that they're going to get pregnant, and so that's not necessarily uncommon. I view that honestly as a sex offense, personally, right? Because of that power dynamic, right? And so that's what I think. You know, I think they're taking advantage of somebody. But yeah, it seems to be something more about women outside, you know, of jail falling for men in jail than men outside of jail who work there falling for women in there. So anyways, that's how this goes, man. Help others move in excellence. That's what homies do. Help yourself at the same time because you're worth it. This is a little bit outside of my normal topic, but that's why I wanted to add my own perspective. But I talk about all sorts of stuff. There'll be links in the screen and check it out. Have a good one, guys.